Thanks, Evelyn. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, all the members of Local 79. Uh, we're in turbulent times right now. We've never seen so much converging at one time that we're seeing right now. We're in turbulent times. And whenever we're in turbulent times where social justice issues are at stake, one of the main champions to make things right, to create some stability and some certainty, has been the labor movement. Has been the labor movement. Let's go back in history a little bit. 1919 in Canada, the Winnipeg general strike, where organized labor came together to strike because things were not right. The maximized profits by cutting labor costs and employee benefits was predominant at that time. Corporations were running wild, making money after the First World War at the expense of labor. The general strike in Winnipeg had an impact across Canada in terms of championing the rights of employees and bringing attention to the inequity, the injustice that was taking place. 2 people actually died in that general strike. But in their death and in that strike, the labor movement significantly impacted the way employees were treated across Canada. Let's move forward to the 1970s, because we spend a lot of time looking at what's going on in America. And what we see in the 1970s is the civil rights movement. Again, a question about social justice, inequity. The civil rights movement in the United States of America in the 1970s, we all know about Martin Luther King. We know about the leaders there. But that civil rights movement would not have been successful without the significant contribution of the labor movement in terms of able to mobilize and organize people across the country to stand up for an injustice that was taking place against the people. So we look at the Winnipeg general strike, we look at the civil rights movement, the role of the labor union, the labor movement and unions, and the significance of its contribution. So let's fast track to 2020 in Toronto, Canada. We're in turbulent times because we have some issues here that need to be dealt with. And it goes back to social justice. It goes back to racism, anti-Black racism, something that has been going on in this country for years and has not been addressed. But as I said at the beginning, things are beginning to converge, coming together right now with police brutality, right? Anti-Black racism. I'm talking to people today about anti-Black racism and they're actually listening. If I spoke to them about anti-Black racism a few years back, they would say, how come? Why are you always talking about racism and stuff, right? Today they're listening. So we have opportunity. Anti-Black racism is about, it's about privilege, right? It's about access, right? It's about bias. It's about apathy. And it's about economics and class. It's about silent participants as individuals and silent participants as organizations who have been the main benefactors of this discrepancy in how people are treated, this inequity. And I think it's important in 2020 at this time to take a look at the role of the union, its accomplishments, its achievements over history, and the fact that it has never backed down in times of crisis. And we're in crisis mode now. And that is demonstrated by the number of protests, the amount of demonstrations, who's participating in it, and their conviction. So that reminds me of the union, standing up for what is right in the most difficult of times. So now we look to the union, we look to Local 79, we look to all union groups, and we say we need allies to make the necessary change. We're not looking for a diversity statement in the human resources manual, because the diversity statement has always been there, but we've never looked at the dispersion of this diversity. Who continues to be at top of the ladder and who continues to be at the bottom? So this is an opportunity for the union to look at its role in history, how it has been the defender of not some people, but all who carries the union badge. But it's not only the union that has a responsibility here. I think the individuals have to look at themselves, because I spoke about silent participants. They know what's going on. They've seen it, but they've benefited from it, from being silent. So in these turbulent times, where do we go? Anti-Black racism exists. I'm the founder of the Zero Gun Violence Movement, which is a collaboration of over 40 different organizations, agencies, programs across the city of Toronto, fighting for a very bold and ambitious objective of zero gun violence in the city of Toronto, not for some people, but for all. We've made it clear that we already have zero gun violence in the city of Toronto, but it's only in certain communities for certain people. Why is it that the people living in Rosedale don't have to worry about gun violence? But why is it the people in Rexdale, they have to worry about it? This is about justice. This is about equity. This is about class. This is about economics. The safety nets that we normally have in society to help the most vulnerable, they need a safety net under them right now because there's so much gaping holes. So we've known this from day one. But what have we done about it? What have we done about it to make this right? We're going to include diversity statements in the Human Resources Manual when we know that that diversity is about aligning certain peoples at the top and certain people at the bottom. This is not foreign. What I'm telling you is not new. You see it, you know it. So I go back to the role of the union as a champion against injustice and a champion for that what is right, not for some, but for all. And as we go through these times here, we look at the job market. We know that the work tomorrow is not going to look like work yesterday. We know that the most vulnerable are going to have the most difficulty getting back into the workforce. And we know that anti-Black racism will play a role in how these resources and these opportunities are handed out. So do we ignore this as we've done in the past? Do we camouflage it with different fancy names? That's a diversity statement, right? Or are we going to call it out for what it is? Anti-Black racism. I know that when I go into a store, because of the color of my skin, I'm going to be followed. I know that when I apply for a job and they see me as a Black person, the likelihood is not going to be the same as somebody that looks different than me. I know that when I go on TTC, I'm going to be treated differently than another person that doesn't look like me. Housing. Look at what's going on with COVID. Look at the seniors, how they're treated and what's going on. These are all social justice issues where some people are benefiting at the expense of others. The profit motive plays trump card over human dignity, human equity. And I hate to put this on the union. I hate to put this on Local 79, because I know that you guys are doing incredible work, just putting this together. But we all have a role to play in making this right, not for some, but for all. Your history is your roadmap. Your history is the roadmap. When have you stood up and fought in turbulent times? So yes, the Winnipeg general strike, the civil rights movement, the challenges that we have today with anti-Black racism, we're looking to the union to be an ally. We're looking for the union to be the champion that they've done in the past. Because as the union works to defend the rights of the employee, we all benefit in some way, shape, or form. And this is why 2020, as we go through these turbulent times, we ask the union to take its rightful role in being the champion, in defending the rights of not only Black people, but the most vulnerable in society that are feeling the trauma, the pain, the agony of being left behind. So I'm happy to be here because I want to hear what the members have to say. I'm happy to be here because I'm seeing Local 79 taking a leadership role in doing this. And I'm happy to be here because I know good things will happen. So with that said, I'm just going to wrap up and say finally, this is the time. This is the time to be champions again, to be leaders, because we cannot continue to hide anti-Black racism. We cannot continue to hide it and sugarcoat it the way we've done in the past. It's breakout time. Let's do what we must. You have a history, you have a track record of doing the right thing. We need allies, we need leaders. Please, 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 stick to that role. Stick to that role. We need you now. Thank you very much.
That was extremely powerful. Louis is no stranger to us. Louis was at our Black History Month event. Louis Marsh is also a volunteer, community volunteer, and an advocate in the Black community for many years. His work has primarily focused on youth issues such as unemployment, education, gun violence, family and cultural awareness. Louis, thank you. Continue to advocate for us. You're the voice and you're one of our leaders. and we do look to you. Thank you very much.
Evelyn.
79 members and its executive.